Okay, I'm cleaning and not fit to be on camera, so y'all get the googly eye filter. It is what it is. I want to talk for a couple of seconds about this breaking news that the US Open is ordering broadcasters to censor the crowd's reactions to Donald Trump's attendance at the last day of the Open today. In particular, I'd like to point you to this piece that came out in The Guardian. Y'all, The Guardian is just having consistently fantastic reporting of the Trump regime. They're definitely one of my top trusted news sources. When I go to look up a story, I always cross-check and see if The Guardian has a piece on it. So the USTA's censorship of Trump dissent at the US Open is cowardly, hypocritical, and un-American, by Brian Armin Graham at Flushing Meadows. So basically, the US Open, the Trump regime, they understand that Donald Trump is incredibly unpopular and anticipate that there's going to be strong negative reaction to his attendance at the US Open. But Donald Trump, who presents himself as so bigly and all-powerful and like the biggest strong man that ever lived, he can't handle a little criticism. Right? Not only can he not handle an authentic reaction from other folks, because narcissists are brittle as fuck, y'all, but also he doesn't want anybody else to see how unpopular he is. He's trying desperately to preserve this narrative that his approval rating is like 80%, which is absolutely false. I know that both he and Christo-fascist Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, have said that, his approval rating is like 80%. Y'all, it's in the low 40s or high 30s, depending on which polling source you're looking at. He is underwater across the board on every single issue. Obviously, there's multiple aspects to this story that make it incredibly important right now. But I think all of it falls under the overarching umbrella of the revolution will not be televised. The United States Tennis Association, currently a pillar of support of the Trump regime. They have asked broadcasters to not show dissent against Donald Trump at the US Open. This is what is called complying in advance. The article calls it a preemptive concession, where the USTA has committed an unforced error that cannot be undone, sacrificing authenticity and credibility in order to shield a politician, any politician, regardless of party, ideology, or affiliation, from the sound of public disapproval. So according to these emails and this report in The Guardian, the USTA instructed its television partners to refrain from showcasing any disruptions or reactions when Trump appears on screen during Sunday's final. So here we see the Tennis Association being a pillar of support for the Trump regime. They are trying to appease him in advance. We have no indication that Trump asked them to do this. I think that's why the author here is calling it an unforced error. And then, of course, the U.S. Tennis Association tried to cover their ass and be like, we routinely ask for this. But as the author here says, this is, after all, the same tournament that happily televised a climate protester gluing himself to a seat for nearly an hour during Coco Gauff's semifinal win over Karolina Muchova 2 years ago, along with countless other fan disturbances. The same tournament shrugs at the drunken buffoonery behind its U.S. bro pen reputation. The U.S. Open practically invented televising distractions. Chaos is its brand. For the USTA to draw the line at showing booze for a sitting president is not policy consistency, but capitulation. And the article here is absolutely right. To what end? Because of the fear that Trump, who had been booed loudly at the U.S. Open in 2015, would once again be exposed as unpopular before a global audience. And we could talk about how corporate legacy media is in the pocket of the Trump regime. One of the things I've been screaming about since before the election is journalistic integrity, how corporate media has none, and some big names in independent media have none. There was reporting just yesterday or the day before that some large names in independent media all got together and decided they were not going to talk about Gaza because it was not good for their brand. They felt it was too divisive of a subject. Right, so they said, we're not going to talk about this because whether or not they may have political motivations, they definitely clearly had profit motivations for declining to cover a subject. And here we are seeing the same thing. Corporate legacy media is being told don't cover this. Look at the Paramount merger. We are seeing time and time again, corporate media is abandoning their journalistic integrity. They are betraying the American people and democracy, all because they think it will benefit their profit line. They think it will benefit their CEOs. They think their shareholders will get larger dividends. It's fucking capitalism, whether it's independent media or whether it's corporate legacy media. Here we are seeing capitalism, a profit motivation, compromising journalistic integrity and denying people access to really good and important news stories, whether it's Gaza, whether it's the fact that CNN, CBS, ABC are deciding that they are not going to accurately fact check Donald Trump and they're going to uncritically report his lies as if they were true. I mean, they've been platforming and sane washing him and the alt-right for almost a decade. CNN routinely has right-wing nut jobs on their panel with credible journalists. It enrages me to have to see Tiffany Cross have to engage with some alt-right grifter as if they were on equal footing and their words were equally credible. So here we're not only seeing the U.S. Tennis Association being a pillar of support for the Trump regime, not because they give a shit about Trump, but because they care about their profit and they think that appeasing Donald Trump, they think that complying in advance will protect their profit margin. We are also seeing that from legacy media as well. That is why the saying goes, the revolution will not be televised. They don't want you to see the overwhelming disapproval that the American people, and not just the American people, they don't want Americans to see how people around the world loathe Donald Trump, and they are rooting for us to stop his authoritarian takeover and install a democracy in the United States. They don't want us to know that we have millions, billions of people around the world standing in solidarity with us, supporting us. They want us to feel alone and isolated. So they don't want Americans to see what other Americans are doing. They don't want Americans to see the support for the pro-democracy movement from the international community. They want to suppress what's really happening. Authoritarians don't want you to see the protests. They don't want you to see the public dissent. They don't want you to see how angry everybody is. They want you to believe that you are all alone. They are trying to gaslight you into believing that your ideas are fringe, that most people love Donald Trump, and if they don't love him, they are willing to accept what he's doing. I appreciated how this article mentioned that televising public dissent against an authoritarian like Trump is not a breakdown of the civil order. Accurately depicting what's happening is crucial for maintaining the civil order. Trump is trying to destroy civil order, the rule of law, our society as we know it. And apparently the U.S. Tennis Association and corporate legacy media are willing to be collaborators in that effort because they think that they can do a big capitalism and protect their profit margin under a Trump regime by kissing his ass. This line here, it shows how much Trump's first term and his bullying of cultural institutions still shapes behavior. We are definitely seeing a chilling of dissent from powerful institutions and corporations. They are less willing to speak up against Trump than they were during his first term. This right here, as we saw before the Super Bowl, big sports is increasingly accommodating Donald Trump, or they're just not speaking up, right? In this instance, y'all, silence is violence. You either against the fascists or you are complicit with, supporting, appeasing, tolerating, platforming, giving cover to, giving support to fascism. If you are not actively working against the fascists, if you are trying to minimize dissent against a fascist regime because you think it will be more profitable for you, you are a traitor to the American people. You are betraying democracy. Now, I don't like tennis. I don't give a shit about tennis. But this line, by sanitizing its reaction, the USTA isn't just shielding Trump, it is stripping the event of its unique character, authenticity, and integrity. The irony cuts even deeper because the Open has always been on the forefront of progress. It was the first of the majors to award equal prize money to women and men, long before other sports caught up. It platformed, embraced, and celebrated LGBTQ plus athletes before it was fashionable to do so. From Billie Jean King to Martina Navratilova, to Renee Richards breaking ground as one of the first transgender athletes in professional tennis. USTA, what a betrayal to your athletes. What a betrayal to your athletes to send out this letter and to tell broadcasters not to cover dissent. Feel free to pause here to read about how progressive the USTA has been and why their choice is such a bitter betrayal. So I just want to conclude here. Thanks for letting me do Googly eye filter from my dark, dank basement. I mean, let's be really clear here. Donald Trump is scared shitless. He is so weak and so unpopular. He cannot handle you and me and the world seeing how many people are opposed to what he's doing. And this is why I talk so much about eroding the pillars of support under Trump. Trump is profoundly weak. The reason that he is still in power is because of institutions like the U.S. Tennis Association, because of corporations like legacy media. They are carrying water for him. They are doing work for him. They are keeping him in power, keeping him protected, spreading propaganda that is meant to demoralize the resistance against fascism. And they are doing it all because they think that they can make more money. They're doing it for profit. They are betraying democracy for money. Welcome to capitalism. I hope everybody at the event is filming what's happening and posting it all over social media.